In this alternate history, a tribute to a fallen senator becomes the trigger for the deepest global depression since the 1930s.
This story is fictional. It's based on real events, but everything beyond the known facts is speculation. Our goal is to explore an alternate timeline, not to rewrite history, but to imagine what might have been.
On Monday, July 13, 2026, a White House official confirmed to The Hill that President Trump was throwing his support behind the late Senator Lindsey Graham's Russia sanctions bill. The legislation had been circulating on Capitol Hill for more than a year. Graham championed it before his death, and now Senator Jeanne Shaheen was leading a bipartisan push in his honor. On paper, it looked like a fitting tribute. In practice, it was one of the most aggressive economic weapons Congress had ever drafted. The heart of the bill was not the usual freeze on oligarch bank accounts. It was a provision that would slap tariffs of up to 500% on any country that kept buying Russian oil, gas, and uranium. The target was obvious: China, India. The two most populous nations on Earth, engines of half the global economy, told to choose between American markets and Russian energy. Supporters called it the sanctions bill with teeth. They were right about the teeth. They were wrong about who would bleed. But what if Congress had passed it exactly as written and the president had signed it in the Rose Garden with Graham's widow standing beside him? Imagine the pens come out on a warm morning in late July. The ceremony is emotional. Lawmakers praise a fallen colleague, and the president calls it the toughest stand against Moscow in American history. Within hours, the 500% tariff clock starts ticking on every nation still purchasing Russian crude. The first crack appears not in Moscow, but in Beijing. China buys enormous volumes of discounted Russian oil, and it has no intention of stopping on Washington's command. The Chinese Foreign Ministry calls the law economic warfare, a violation of sovereignty. India, which had spent years balancing between Washington and Moscow, finds itself facing tariffs that would gut its export economy overnight. New Delhi refuses to comply. Just like that, the bill meant to punish one country has declared trade war on two. The tariffs snap into place. Container ships bound for Los Angeles and Savannah are turned around mid-ocean because the goods aboard are no longer profitable to land. Retail chains that depend on Chinese and Indian manufacturing watch their supply lines freeze. Within weeks, American store shelves start thinning out. Electronics, medicine, auto parts, cheap clothing all climbing in price or vanishing outright. China retaliates the way it always warned it would. It halts exports of rare earth metals and processed pharmaceuticals to the United States. American factories that build everything from fighter jets to electric cars discover they cannot get the materials they need. Hospitals report shortages of common generic drugs, most traced back to Chinese and Indian plants. Prices explode. Inflation, which had finally cooled, roars back to life. Then China reaches for its heaviest weapon. It begins dumping its holdings of United States Treasury bonds. As Beijing sells, the value of American debt sags, interest rates spike, and federal borrowing costs jump overnight. Mortgages become unaffordable. The stock market, already jittery, drops in a single session harder than it did in 2008. Retirement accounts evaporate, and the panic spreads from Wall Street to Main Street in a matter of days. India, humiliated and cornered, does something no one in Washington predicted. It deepens its ties with both Russia and China, forming a trade bloc built to root around the American dollar. Other nations, terrified of getting caught by the same 500% hammer, start settling oil purchases in yuan and rubles. The unshakable dominance of the dollar, the thing that let America run the world's economy for 80 years, begins to slip. Russia, meanwhile, barely flinches. The sanctions were supposed to strangle Moscow's war economy. Instead, Russia sells its oil to China and India at a discount, and those buyers, locked out of American trade anyway, take everything on offer. The Kremlin's revenue holds. The war it was fighting continues. The bill named in Graham's honor achieves the exact opposite of its purpose. By autumn, the Cascade reaches the streets. Fuel prices pass records as global energy markets fracture into rival blocks. Truckers idle their rigs because diesel costs more than a load pays. Grocery deliveries slow. Cities see the first rounds of panic buying and then the empty gas stations and the scattered unrest. The Federal Reserve is trapped. Cut rates to save the economy and the dollar sinks further. Raise them and the recession deepens. So it does nothing, and doing nothing looks like. Allies in Europe, dependent on the same global trade, are dragged under too. The tariff war triggers a worldwide contraction. Factories close from Germany to Vietnam. Unemployment climbs on 3 continents. What began as a tribute to a dead senator becomes the trigger for the deepest global depression since the 1930s. And in the geopolitical rubble, the real damage is permanent. A bloc of China, Russia, India, and a dozen frightened nations now conducts its business outside the American financial system. The sanctions, once the most powerful non-military tool the United States possessed, no longer scares anyone, because half the planet has already built the exits. Washington swung the biggest hammer it owned, and the hammer shattered in its own hand. Years later, historians would look back at that warm July morning in the Rose Garden. They would note the good intentions, the grief, the desire to honor a man who spent his career warning about Moscow. And they would mark it as the day America mistook the size of a weapon for the wisdom of using it.
In this world, history went one way. But here, we ask what could have happened. If you want more alternate timelines and government what-ifs, subscribe, comment your theory, and stay tuned. This is State of What If.